Hi, my name is Keith Peck, and today I'll be talking about making coffee. Alright, so I gathered all the materials we'll be using. Some we will be using, some we won't. Some are just as examples. But we got the most important thing here, which is our coffee. I'm using the Kenya AA, or double A as it's usually pronounced, blend. This one's from Giant Eagle, so it's not bad. And we'll be making 1 cup of coffee today. And I'll be talking about all the necessary things to do, or just side notes. So the first thing is about coffee storage. Alright? Usually, well, not usually, coffee is affected by light, temperature, and humidity. So ideally you want to store it in a place that those things aren't really changing. My favorite place is the freezer because the temperature is regulated, the humidity is staying the same, and it's in a dark place, so there's not very much light. It's fine to keep outside if you keep your house at a stable temperature and the humidity's not fluctuating, but here at my house we open the windows, we let it, humidity changes. So for us, the best place is the freezer. And next we'll talk about the grind. Alright, so here we are at the grinder. So typically when you buy coffee, you get it in a whole bean, a roasted whole bean. And in order to make your cup of coffee in the morning, you have to grind it, or it's pre-ground at the grocery store. However, there are different grinds for different types of methods of making, right? So you want to select the right type of grind for the right type of method that you're brewing it in, alright? So, typically, this is the coffee grinder that my mother uses, and it has all the different types of grinds, and it's really fancy and very expensive. But I want to talk about each type of grind and why it's used that way. So you have very coarse and very fine. So the grind with the method. So if you're making the coffee really fast, like the water's moving through the grinds very quickly, you want to go with fine so that you get an extraction from the coffee. Otherwise, like if it's very coarse, the water moves really fast, too fast, through the grinds. On the other hand, if you're doing something like a French press, which it has a picture here under the coarse, you want there to be longer time and more extraction, like not too much extraction. So coarse allows that. If you put fine coffee in your French press, it's going to be way too strong. So you want very coarse. And so this kind of goes through each type. So French press is fairly coarse. You have your regular, just kind of like a slow pour for that. Electric percolator, which not many people use. Here's your auto drip, which is fairly fine. It's like 5 to 7 minutes. That's about right. Then we start getting even finer, which is like an AeroPress, where it's fairly quick. The contact with the coffee is only for like 2 to 3 minutes. No, less. 30 seconds. What am I talking about? And then we have espresso, which is, that's real quick. Like a Starbucks or something, you just pop it in and just comes out real quick, so that you need very fine to get the extraction. And Turkish, which is very fast and very different and very strong. So these are the different types. Today we'll be using a fine, and I'll show you the AeroPress, which we aren't actually using today, but I'll show it to you anyways. And I think that's pretty much it. This one's pretty simple. You just pour your coffee in on the top, turn it on, or set the level, then you go boom, and then it comes right out this way. You clean it. So now we're going to head back to the kitchen, and we're going to talk about the optimal water to coffee ratio, and how that affects what you're going to drink. So here we are, back in the kitchen. And we're going to talk about the optimal water to your coffee grinds. So I have my handy dandy conversion. So the ideal or best is usually about 3.25 to 4.25 ounces of coffee for every 64 fluid ounces of water. So what does that really mean? In terms of 1 cup, that's about, I like to use grams because it gets more accurate. That's about 11.5 grams to 15 grams for every 8 fluid ounce cup. Alright? So that's what we're going to be measuring out today. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And I'll just turn on my little weigher and put this thing on. And as it zeroes out, we'll open this and start our pouring. So today I'm going to do, this coffee is fairly coarse. So I'm going to probably put it a little bit higher, so maybe about 13 grams. That's what I like to measure in because it's a little bit more accurate. Oh dear, I'm spilling it all over the place. So we're at 6, 12, a little bit more. Perfect. So now we're at 13. And I'm just going to save this for when we're going to make it. Alright? I need to clean this up. But the next thing that we're going to go to and talk about is water temperature and how that affects the coffee. Alright? So, before we talk about water temperature, I want to talk about the water inside. So, water actually plays a huge impact on the quality of the coffee you're going to be drinking, because coffee is 99% water. So it's important to have good tasting water. How do you know your water's good? Well, 1, does it taste good? 2, is it free of odor? And 3, is it clear? So that's a good way just to kind of like eyeball it. If you really want to get fancy, you can get like a measure to read the totally dissolved stuff inside your water. I don't remember, but you can look it up. Now let's talk about temperature. So I'm just going to turn this onto high, and I'm going to begin recording temperature with my little simple temperature thing. Ideally, you want your coffee to be, the water should be hitting your coffee at about 190 degrees Fahrenheit to about 205. Anything under that ideal rate, or ideal temperature, it's going to get under-extracted. You're not going to get the acidity and flavor that you want. However, if you go higher than that, it's going to cause bitterness and it's just not going to taste good. It's going to taste kind of burnt, actually. So, it's really important to, if you're doing it the way I'm doing it today, where I'm going to do kind of a pour over, to measure the temperature of your coffee. So, that's what I'm going to do. And while this warms up, we're going to prepare the coffee. Alright? Alright, so our water is warming up, and we need to prepare a cup because we're kind of doing a pour over. So the next thing that we need to do is a filter, get that stuff ready, and get the coffee prepared. Like I said earlier, I was going to show you an AeroPress. This is an AeroPress. It's pretty basic, kind of like this, and you put your coffee, and you have your filter, and this. And when you pour the hot water, afterward you stir it up for 10 seconds. You put this on top and pour. However, we are not using the AeroPress today. We're actually going to go back in time to like when the Army used to have like no filters, and all they had was a sock. So today we're going to do things a little bit different, and I'm going to use a sock as our filter. This is a clean sock. This is not used. So this is meant to be kind of just an experiment and kind of fun to do. You can do it at home if you want. I'm just going to wrap it around and kind of pull it up like this. And we're going to use it as our filter. Normally, the filter is very, very important, and you have to do this correctly. So don't use this normally if you want a good cup of coffee. This is just for fun. So I'm going to pour this right in here.
I think it's cool.
And now we're ready to pour our coffee. So now we just got to go check the temperature. So our coffee has reached our desired temperature at 190 some degrees. And now I'm going to pour it, and very slowly. I've never done this before, so we're going to give it a shot. Remember, we want a lot of extraction time, so we're going to just kind of pour over, and we're going to get it to bloom. There we go. It's kind of like a pour over. Let it settle. Let it percolate right down into the cup. Perfect. Probably should pull it up a little bit. Like that. Perfect. And here we go again. I'm just going to pour it right in. See it blooming? I don't know if you do, but it's kind of soaking up in the sun right now. Good. Smells interesting. We'll see how it turns out. So, until then, we're gonna wait. Alright, so I cleaned up everything, and now we are here to taste the coffee. I've been kind of smelling it as it's been cooling off. And it definitely has a little bit of a woolly smell, like a sock, but it also has a very strong coffee smell, kind of acidic and some other earthy undertones. Very typical of a Kenya AA. About smelling. You should always smell your coffee before you drink it. It's a great way to just enjoy the coffee experience. Take a whiff, see what types of elements you're smelling. Are they earthy? Are they sweet, floral, so on and so forth. And then, of course, the second part is tasting it. So, we're going to give this a shot and see how it tastes. Here goes nothing. Not too bad, actually. It definitely has the elements of a Kenya AA, which is acidic, sweet, fairly well balanced, a little bit earthy, but there's also the taste of the sock in there slightly. I tasted it at the end more than at the beginning. But overall, I'd rate it, it's not a bad coffee at all. Probably better than some places that you buy it, or that brew it. So, on that note, whenever you drink coffee, you should also let it's recommended that if you really want the full coffee experience, you let it cool, and then you try it again cold and see if it tastes pretty good, and then you wait 2 days, and if it's a really good coffee, it should maintain its taste from day 1 cold to day 3 cold. So, and it shouldn't be bitter. That's when you really know you got something nice. But I'd like to thank you for joining me today on learning how to brew some coffee and just some of the elements that affect it. If you'd like to learn more, I bet you could just go to Google and Google up on coffee, and there's plenty of other YouTube videos about this. Or you could also attend an SCAA coffee event. So as we conclude this, have a good evening or day.